Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Bass After Dark. We've got what I am confident will be a thought-provoking show lined up for you tonight with a panel of industry thought leaders and a hilarious top 10 list. But before we get to the question of the night, there have been a lot of changes lately with big-time tournament trails in terms of the anglers coming and going, and I want to take a minute or two just to catch you up on some of that. The so-called Bass War has been going on for the better part of a decade now. And naturally, the question is, who's winning? It's not an easy question to answer, especially when B.A.S.S, Major League Fishing, and the National Professional Fishing League are all quick to claim victory. In fact, it's a question we'll be addressing very soon on Bass After Dark, so be on the lookout for that episode. For now, though, bass fans seem to be focused on the comings and goings of the big names in the sport. You almost need a tracking device on every pro angler just to keep up with where they will be fishing. Larry Nixon, one of the all-time greats and the sport's first $1 million man, announced his retirement from the Bassmaster Elite Series recently. Nixon said, "Over the course of my career, I've worn out 2 thumbs, a shoulder, a heart, a knee, and an elbow due to competitive repetition." Back in the 1970s, they made a television show about a guy like that. They called it the $6 Million Man. And today, with inflation and Bidenomics, it'd probably be more like 50 million. But it would make a heck of a comeback story, Larry. Think about it. Forward-facing sonar. That's nothing. Robotics, Larry. Robotics. That's for you. Speaking of legends who are going to be missed, also retiring from the Elite Series is the great David Fritz, perhaps the greatest crankbait fisherman of all time. The 1993 Bassmaster Classic champ and 94 AOY isn't done with competitive fishing entirely, though. He'll be out on the NPFL circuit, and we certainly wish him well there. And then, of course, there's Kevin Van Dam. What can you say about the GOAT, the greatest of all time? After 8 AOY titles, 4 Bassmaster Classic wins, and twice as much prize money as the next closest angler, KVD has just one more tournament to go, the 2024 Red Crest. And it's rumored that the next chapter of his life will be power baking. It's finally time to monetize the family chocolate chip cookie recipe. Bobby Lane is returning to the Bass Pro Tour via a Red Crest champion exemption. Jordan Lee is going back to the Bassmaster Elite Series thanks to a Legends exemption. There are now more exemptions in professional bass fishing than in the IRS regs. Randall Tharp and former Classic champ Cliff Pace are leaving MLF to fish the Bassmaster Opens in 2024. And a bunch of big names have announced plans to leave the Bass Pro Tour without any clear destination. Some are simply retiring. They've had enough, or maybe the game has passed them by. We've seen that in every other sport. It happens in bass fishing too. Overall, MLF seems to be hemorrhaging more talent than bass, but they probably have more big names to start with. Nevertheless, if the bleeding doesn't stop, Boyd Duckett could soon be envious of Kamala Harris's approval rating. Over at Bass, they need to reestablish trust with the returning anglers. Now, back when I worked at BASS, I used to joke that the difference between fishing the FLW Tour and entering the Witness Relocation Program was that someone might see you in the Witness Relocation Program. But since MLF's purchase of FLW, they've grown that platform significantly, and the 2 leagues now seem to be on a pretty level playing field as they fight for eyeballs, ad dollars, and now for Bass Pros. I'm excited to set the record straight on one thing here, and that is the reports that NPFL competitors should direct their deposit entry fees into Patrick Walters' personal account. That's not true. Turns out that Patrick has an S-Corp with a separate tax ID number, so you need to just wire your money to Patrick Walters is way better than you, LLC. Ultimately, it's difficult, maybe even impossible to say who's winning the Bass War. Everyone is simultaneously claiming victory and showing signs of, let's just say, challenges. Bassmaster and Bass Times magazines are now thinner than Kyoyo Fujita's leader line. MLF keeps changing its format, and too many people think the F in NPFL stands for football. I'd like to think the sport is strong enough to support all 3, but if this was election coverage right now, I'd say the race is still too close to call. Welcome again to Bass After Dark, the most illuminating conversation in bass fishing. My name is Ken Duke, and for the next 90 minutes or so, we're going to work to entertain you and try to earn a regular spot on your Thursday night calendar. Thanks to James Riley, we have the best logo in the business. And thanks to Ron Stallings, we've got the smoothest intro. But now it's time for my most important duty of the night, And that's introducing my co-host, the man, the myth, the Carpenter, Brian the Carpenter.
Outstanding, Ken. Earn a spot. Yeah, we're here to offend and entertain you. You forgot the offend part.
That's right. Your job, as we've said before on the show, is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable.
How dare you? I was glad to see you guys got another Sherry's Cookies joke in there.
We got to. I've had the privilege of actually having for Sherry's Cookies. They're fabulous, and I think it's a Van Dam family recipe. I'm not really sure about that. I did get to taste one of those once after one day of competition, the 2010 Classic. For whatever reason, Kevin had one left over, and he shared it with me, and it's actually all it's cracked up to be. It was delicious.
Sherry's Forbidden Cookies?
I don't know about forbidden, but I know that KVD would eat one after each of his first 5 keepers. So that was kind of a big deal. Well, that's what it was in theory. And he didn't have a bunch of them that he took out with him each day, but they are fabulous cookies.
Fantastic. Hope we never hear about them again on this show.
I got it. We'll come up with other things to talk about. No worries on that. Well, can you tell everybody a little bit about our format and what Bass After Dark is about?
That's right, Ken. Bass After Dark. Each show is predicated upon one question. One question, 3 panelists. The panelists do not know who the other panelists are, and we blindfold them and bring them into the pit of doom.
That's right.
And have them battle to the death.
And of course, our goal is always to have the most illuminating conversation in bass fishing. But that's not all. I mean, we got my monologue, which obviously I'm working on trying to get that better. We've got the best conversation in bass fishing, but we wrap the show up, BTC, with something that I know you and I love.
Oh, the top 10 list.
Yeah.
The top 10 list is glorious. Good golly, where the hell is it? Oh, shit. The top 10, I'm going to boot this one, Ken, because I can't read. You printed it in red, and my printer ran out of red ink.
I can do it if you need me to.
Ghosted. No. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, it's tonight's top 10 is top 10 theme songs being considered by Jacob Fouts
for the 2024 season. Or less.
Yeah, exactly. When these guys walk across the weigh-in stage, Bass kicks off some music. These guys get to select. And we, through divine intervention and other nefarious means, we were able to track down the list that Jacob Fouts is working from to choose his theme song for 2024. We're excited to have that.
Oh, it's outstanding.
But
making
that's
friends
not
and influencing people.
Oh, it's a fabulous list, and I can understand why Fouts is working from this list, because this is genius, absolute genius.
There's so many. It's tough to choose.
It really is. Really, a lot of great music on that list. But we'll tell everybody about that at the end of the show.
Yes.
After the best conversation in the business, right here, and we've got a great question tonight. You know, BTC and I and our other partner Nathan Benson. We worked hard to come up with the concepts for each individual show. And of course, each show is one question that our panel of experts is coming on to discuss. And tonight's question, I think, is a really cool one that we will probably revisit with other panels in the future. But we're starting with our A-listers. But tell us the question, if you would, BTC.
That's right. What would you do if you were Bass czar for a day?
There you go. What would you do?
That's the basic concept of it. But
Yep.
you know, your decisions, your moves. What would you do to address issues in the bass fishing, not just the bass fishing industry, not just limited to professional bass fishing, but all of the above?
Yeah, and I want to make the conversation very expansive. We've got the people to do it. We've got 3 folks that I think our audience is going to know quite well, even though. And I think these guys probably know each other quite well, but they don't know who's going to appear on the show with them. So that's going to be exciting. I think that adds a good dynamic for us. But yeah, the Bass czar. I think we all dream about being Bass czar and being in control of the sport. And
Bass lord, Bass overlord,
yeah,
Bass
absolutely.
tyrant.
Who wouldn't want that job? I mean, there was a day when basically Ray Scott held that position, but I don't think anybody has had that position since Ray Scott in the 70s and maybe through the 80s. He was kind of in that position, but nobody since then. But anyway, let's bring our panelists out here. Let's not keep anybody waiting any longer.
Let's do it, Ken. First into the pit of death and despair, we have a two-time FLW winner, two-time B.A.S.S winner, a two-time classic competitor, the dean of the B.A.S.S University, and Jake's favorite father. We've got Peter Gluszek.
How you guys doing? Good to be here, boys.
Pete, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate. Pete Gluszek is just one of my favorite guys in the sport. Fabulous human being. The dean of the B.A.S.S University. There is no finer way to learn more about the sport and how to catch them than watching the content that Pete Gluszek and the folks at the B.A.S.S University create.
Well, thank you for that. Appreciate it, guys. It's fun listening to you guys. Open up this new podcast. It's very interesting. Nice dynamic. I appreciate being part of it tonight.
Well, you'll be invited back, but we're thrilled to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. BTC, Pete Gluszek, as if that weren't enough. I mean, come on. But we got more.
But wait, there's more. We've got two-time Associated Press Sports Editor Award winner. He's covered Super Bowls, World Series, the Golf U.S. Open, editor of B.A.S.S Fan since 2005. The next lamb to slaughter, we've got John Johnson.
Big John.
Hey, everybody.
John's headgear always makes me jealous. He has the best hats in the business, hands down. Cifuentes got nothing on John Johnson. John, thank you for being with us. Uh-oh. Are we locked up? John, are you with us? Nathan can work on that. Hopefully Nathan can. John's back. John, can you hear me? Okay, maybe Nathan can be working on that right now. But we got one more panelist. We'll come back to John in just a moment and make sure his audio and everything is where it needs to be.
That's right.
BTC, who else we got?
We've got a three-time B.A.S.S winner, six-time Classic qualifier, one of the world's greatest pro staffers and relationship builders, a conservationist, a real giver-backer, Mr. Mark Menendez.
Mark Menendez. Uh-oh.
All right.
Hello.
Where is he? There he is. There he is.
Hello.
Give her
Mark.
back.
I
How
can
about
hear. No, I
like
can't
that,
hear
Give her back.
anybody else talking.
Mark, we're having some audio issues with John's feed, but I assume you have an adult beverage with you.
Well, I am 21.
There you go. There you go. Thank you so much, Mark. We appreciate you. You truly are one of the best bass pros I've ever known, and I know a few. But you have so much experience. All three of you guys have so much experience in the game. I know you're going to bring some real great insight into tonight's question, which is, what would you do if you were czar of the sport? And Nathan, I don't know if we can mute. It looks like you did take John offline for a moment. But Pete, let's go to you, man. You've been in the game in so many different facets. You know, not just as a touring pro, but as a guy who runs B.A.S.S University, as a guy who's been very involved in content creation and so forth. Give me the first thing you would do if you were in charge of the sport. And even though maybe you're only B.A.S.S czar for a day, your decision is going to have lasting impact. What are you going to do?
Don't mess it up, Pete.
My first decision is to never take that job, Ken. That is.
Thank you for coming.
You said at the open of the show that everybody wants that job. I wouldn't want to touch that job with a 10-foot pole.
I'll take it all day long, Pete Gluszek. I'll take it all day long. Sign me up. Don't even care what it pays.
The complexities involved there, the personalities, the drama. And maybe that does sound like you, Mr. Duke. Maybe that is you.
I don't know about that, but I'm not sure that was a compliment, Pete. But you know, you've done so much since you put so much of your career focusing on education. Surely there must be something you would recommend or you would try to dictate to the world to help educate anglers, because I think that's a problem we have. Not everybody signed up for the B.A.S.S University.
Well, you know, I know that's what I do, right? We started B.A.S.S University, and yeah, we're obviously involved there heavily, but that's what I'm thinking about this in the terms of what I would do. What's the question? I got this job, okay? The one of the first things that I would do, a lot of times you got to start from the top and work from the bottom, but I think one of the things that's not talked about near enough is that original Federation guy, is
Okay.
the member of the magazine subscription. Those, you know, that to me, when I got started in fishing, that was just awesome. I loved being part of a club. I was in 2 clubs. We competed at the Federation. We were so excited to make it to the regionals and get our shot to make it to the nation national. And it was a massive draw. Like we loved the sport. We loved it so much. We loved being part. There was no money in the clubs. Like, you know what I mean? We fished because we loved to fish and compete, and we had point systems, and it was just a whole different kind of thing. And that brings me, you know, so I would appoint a first in command under me as a specialist to focus in this area of the sport. The you know, taking care of that customer, taking care of that guy that loves the sport. BTC, when we interviewed Jerry McInnes a decade ago, one of the things he said, and I think it's awesome. Remember when we all had that B.A.S.S emblem on the back of our truck? You know, that decal, and you don't see that as much these days. And one of the things he said, which I thought was dead on, he wanted to work towards bringing that back. You know, bringing that back where people wanted to wear that brand. They wanted that to be associated with it. I thought that initiative was great because we lost it at the ESPN transition. You know, and I'm running on here. Ken said, cut me off anytime. But during the ESPN transition, they're television guys. You know, they specialize in television. They came into B.A.S.S. They had a big focus on what they were going to do with the television product, and the Federation got fractured. It got that relationship got, you know, wasn't focused on enough, and we lost. We lost the base. We fractured a base of this sport that is still fractured today. And
no question.
I'd like to repair.
I was at B.A.S.S when all that went down, and I can tell you a lot of the stuff from the inside. Now we'll get into that. I love where Pete went with that on growing the sport, because I think that's something that too many people don't pay a lot of attention to. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ken. Glad to be here. Hi, guys.
JJ.
Sorry about the tech difficulties.
Oh, that's okay. I think we got it worked out.
Excellent. Nathan's our behind the scenes whiz. Mark, I was just saying that I love where Pete went right out of the gates. He's trying to grow the sport, which I think is honestly where I would put my efforts initially. That would be my primary focus if I'm B.A.S.S czar. What about you, Mark?
Well, Pedro, I still have the B.A.S.S logo.
Pedro?
On the back.
Wait a minute. Yeah. Pedro?
Pete and I've been friends for almost 30 years now. So he's Pedro to me. I mean, I've never yet fallen out of a boat, but he did it with style and grace. That's the best YouTube video ever in the world. I mean, and he caught the damn fish, so that was what was so good about it. But no, I'm gonna go with a different tack, Ken. Yes, the Bass Nation Federation folks are the core of this sport, have been for eons. But I'm going to go to conservation. This is something that we all need to give back. Now, I am in my 33rd or 4th year of my career, and I spent my Sunday afternoon, this past Sunday afternoon, with the Kentucky Bass Nation. the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Department. And we spent, my son and I and 26 other people spent the afternoon planting cypress trees in Barkley Lake. This is something that has an importance on the biology of the lake. This is something that has importance getting people motivated to give back to the resource and the sport. So that's where I'm going to focus more on, Ken. Pete and I have been in this game a long time. Bass fishing has been good to both of us. And as we age through the sport or age out of the sport, and that's one of the cool things about the sport, you know, Guy Aker is still fishing. Guy is up in his 80s and he's competitive, he's mobile, he's a great
Guy's 84.
Yeah. We can do this a very long time. So we can phase into this conservation part of it and make some real good changes. All of our reservoirs in the United States are getting older, and the lack of cover, the lack of the ability of these lakes, the nutrients have washed through them, and to recruit the next year of fish up into our reservoirs is a tough cause in some places. Between the bank cover and the first piece of structure out there, that's almost a biological wasteland. So those cypress trees, we planted 675 trees in about 3 hours. Those trees are in between the bank line and the winter pool level, which is a 5-foot swing on Barkley Lake. And those trees, when they grow and be big and strong, and we basically made a mini Santee Cooper's what we tried to do, guys. Those are going to be trees that in that intermediate zone of that wasteland is going to be beneficial. So conservation is a big deal.
I love it, man.
question.
Ken
Yeah,
Duke
that's
hates
wonderful.
conservation, but I applaud that.
Who said that?
But BTC, conservation for you is 3 drinks before you go to bed or 4.
It's going to be a long night.
Okay,
Probably
there we
6.
go. I mean, I'm just putting it out there.
John, the maturity level of Pete and Mark impressed me there. I did not think they were going to go growing the sport and conservation. Where does John Johnson go? Because all you guys have heavy tournament backgrounds. John Johnson, where are you on your first act as B.A.S.S czar?
Well, as you know, I have a mainstream sports background, so I'm gonna look at it from that perspective first. The day I walk in as the B.A.S.S czar, this deal about holding championship events a quarter of the way through the following season is over. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And when you look at that from a professional sports perspective, it's a ridiculous concept. You know, it would be like the NFL saying, well, if we move the Super Bowl from February to October, we could hold it in New York City or any of these other places where it's too cold in February for all these activities. Or if MLB decided, well, we should move the World Series out of football season, then we get a lot more TV viewers. So what we'll do is move it to the following June. So we'll play maybe 40 games, then stop for the month of June, have our postseason, and then pick up our regular season again. It's never made sense. When B.A.S.S first started doing this about 10 years ago,
They started doing it in 2006.
No, that was when they moved to the spring, and it was okay at first because there weren't the following season's events in front of it. In 2006, they moved to February.
Yes.
And I can see they had to get out of February because if they didn't, they were going to get somebody killed. You know, that either on icy roads or icy ramps or cold water. They had to get it out of February. I understand that. But to put it after you've already held 2 to 3 regular season events of the following season, no, that's gone. Either take it to the summer, which is where I think it belongs. I mean, you don't have to fish Florida in January just because you can. There's different places you can go, and there's different ways to make this work. I understand why they do it from a business perspective, But I'm not coming at it from that angle.
Well, and you made the great point there. They do it from a business perspective. There are dollar reasons behind it. That at the time, and I was in those meetings back in 2004, 5, 6, when all these decisions were being made. The idea was to capture people who are suffering from cabin fever up north.
Certainly.
Move the Classic to February or perhaps early March. Try to capitalize on that. Try to stay away maybe from Daytona 500 week, but leverage that and the fact that people wanted to get out there. Now, I'm with you that I don't like the tournaments in advance of it, but where else can you go at that time of year except Florida, maybe Texas, possibly California? And they ain't going to California because everybody complains about going to California.
Well, if it's me and I'm the czar, I'm putting it back in late summer, early fall.
I totally forgot he's the czar. Okay, you're gonna have weights are down. Weights are down.
I don't care about weights being down.
That's a big ratings driver. Or a lot of people believe it is.
Kenny, I'm not that concerned about ratings. Remember, I'm looking at this from one specific perspective. I'm not that worried about ratings. I'm just going to run my own show, and here's what's going to happen, and you guys make the other stuff work around it.
I like it. That's what a B.A.S.S does. He puts down his foot and says, "This is how it's going to be."
You make a call and you hand it. You delegate downward.
Let me ask. Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
No, he's the czar.
I love that, JJ. I love the hat. I thought you were Ray Scott for a minute when you came on. Yeah.
The last B.A.S.S. Can we agree that Ray Scott was probably the last guy who had that kind of control?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But I don't like it in the middle of the season. But as the czar, I mean, you're responsible for the business side of this too, right? You got to make money. You got to get paid. You're going to get twice the views. You're going to get twice the people at the events. You're going to sell twice the booth space. It's going to be a mob scene. If you go in the summer, the attendance is down. The viewership is down. The money's going to be down. So,
but why does that necessarily have to be down? Why is that?
I can tell you this. When I have a B.A.S.S University in the summer, we get 5 people because it's everybody's fishing. Do I sit in class and listen to Mark Menendez teach me something that'll really help me, or can I just take my kid fishing today? It's a tough decision, but they usually go fishing, and I think that's what happens in the summertime too. People just they're enjoying this sport and they have to make that choice. So I guess they didn't show up, but I don't know. I'm not privy to the finances. Ken, you were probably a lot closer to them than I ever was. But I'm assuming that it's a bottom line thing that they make a lot more money when that thing is in February, March, they do in the summer.
Well, that was the goal initially. This was happening in the fairly early days of the ESPN era. They moved the Classic to 2006 to try to take advantage of that. There was no other big time stick and ball things going on. They hoped they would get at least 500,000. They were really hoping they'd get 1 million audience. They barely got to 500. As far as attendance at the Classic and revenues from the exhibitors, I don't think it matters too much when it is. I think that's probably a pretty flat number, but the television ratings are probably a little better in February or March than they would be in June, July, or the fall. And I'll tell you what, beginning about July, ratings for fishing tank.
Mm-hmm.
People are thinking about deer hunting.
Well, that's because they go to the damn New York lakes and run them smallmouth tournaments that we're so sick of.
Well,
I do hate a smallmouth.
Here's the issue that I see with any kind of major championship. We're wanting to bring the next of the next into the championship. We want to get them a feel for it. And the one thing that I really miss about that summertime classic are all the kids that can't come because in February and March, they're in school. So mom and dad have to take them out of school to bring them to a Bassmasters Classic or championship of any sort. And those kids miss out. In the summertime, it can be a family vacation for the week. The most exciting, and the weights, I could care less about the weights. At the Pittsburgh Classic, I was the color commentator there working beside Tommy Sanders. And that 12 pounds and 15 ounces that Van Dam caught was the most exciting finish that we've had in the Classic since. Doesn't matter if it's 100 pounds, 50 pounds, or 13 pounds, somebody's going to win the event. So I really want to bring back those young people. I want those high school kids. I want those college kids to be able to come to those championships to get the real feel of that event. Now, Pete can agree with me. When we rolled through in our very first classics, and you're right there where the curtains open up and you can look out at the crowd and you can see the Megatron, and then all of a sudden it's this ugly mug that rolls out there. It jumps up in your Adam's apple to this day. I know Pete knows that feeling. He's been there. He understands it. I can remember rolling through in 1997 at the Bassmasters Classic in Birmingham, Alabama. And every time I get in that building, I have that same feeling. So bringing more people to the sport is very important. I wish that we had those summertime classics just to bring more people. The fishing is tougher. It's harder to catch them. Damn the ratings. Let's get the people there that will make a difference, that will carry the sport forward. That's my opinion.
I like it.
I love that attitude, but I'll tell you who doesn't particularly care about the kids being there. And this is a controversial thing to say, and these people will publicly disagree with me. It's the vendors. Kids don't have any money to buy a new rod reel,
true, Ken. Very true.
trolling motor, anything else. So they don't care. They'd rather have the adults.
I don't know.
I'm sorry, Pete, I interrupted you.
My son just jacked me for $30 for Fortnite just now. So I'm pretty sure that they can find the money. But I like your JJ. I think I like moving it back to the summer. I like, we can have classics up north we will never have a northern classic again.
No, ever. It can't be done now.
So what we, as the czar, is we appoint somebody, and we, we have, like, we're czars, so we can, like, punishment is death. So we can say, you got to make us money in the summer at the classic or else.
Wow, I think we all need to be very grateful that we do not live under the thumb of Pete Gluszek.
That you use the term czar. I'm like, this gives us this gives us
that was the whole premise. That's the way I've been thinking about this show since I got that first email.
Pete, I would be happy to serve under any of you guys as Bass Czar. I truly would. And I'm loving the conversation. This is great. I love that you guys have focused on the stuff about growing the sport and so forth. Now, but I do have my questions about the youth that shows up at an event like the Classic and whether that really moves the needle. Obviously, mom and dad are obviously into the sport at this point, so those kids are probably already fishing. Yeah, an event like the Classic might take them up a notch, but I'm not sure how much that really changes. If more people see it on TV, doesn't that ultimately do more for the sport? And if we can get a better TV audience in February than we can in July or September, it seems like that moves the needle more. But that's my thinking.
I agree with you, Ken. I mean, it's all about exposure and what is true exposure. The one thing that I, as a Bass Pro, have to do is gain exposure that's accountable. And when you have positive exposure to the sport, then it'll grow. Our next generation of anglers, we've done a great job getting high schoolers in fishing, getting college people in fishing. Right now, I have not done the numbers, Ken, but I would estimate that it has gone up on the new Bassmaster Elite Series. Of the new elite anglers, I would say we're at somewhere between 40 to 48% of those anglers in the Elite Series are now former college anglers. So that is the recruitment that we need to get to the highest level of fishing on the Elite Series, or bringing more people there. Now, have we sold a bill of goods to a lot of people on high school and college fishing that everybody can attain that? It's only a 0.5% of 1% that allows that people are lucky enough to get there. So, but that's Major League Baseball, that's the football major, the football league, that's PGA, whatever it is. A very select few people are lucky enough, fortunate enough, skilled enough, talented enough to get there. But the thing about fishing is, even though I've been fortunate enough to perform at the highest level of fishing all these years, it's something I'm going to be able to do into my 80s. Could I do it on the professional level like Guy Ecker has, like Rick Clunn? Rick's barking at 80 years old here soon. Yes, you can do that, but you can fish with your family, friends, and loved ones for your entire lifetime. So are we selling this idea of professional fishing as the only way to go, or the wholesomeness and the family activity of fishing, which is probably better than the professional level of
I agree with you, no question.
Doesn't that go back to what Pete started with about the B.A.S.S emblem? How B.A.S.S used to be, the magazine used to be about fishing, and then became about the league, the tournaments.
Well, there's still so much how-to knowledge, even though magazine sales across the board, I don't care which one you're talking about, has backed up. This is knowledge. People are hungry to know how to catch more fish. Whether it's Pete's University, someone is teaching, when you make a productive cast and you catch a bass, and this is one of the things I've always said in seminars, when I make a productive cast, before I put that size 10 on that power pole trolling motor and I move, make that same cast again. Bass are social creatures. They hang out with their buddies. You might catch another one if you make that same cast again. And that's the kind of information that Pete is teaching to people of all levels of angling. So teaching, regardless if it's digital, whether it's television or it's print media or it's in person, the importance of teaching, you cannot beat the education of bass fishing. There's so many different ways to do it. There's so many different angles. Everybody can learn whatever they want to learn from someone that has been at it as many hours as Pete, myself have done it.
Somebody's getting a lot of pages. If you could silence your phone, I think that would help.
Yeah, it's me, but it rings in on the computer as well as the phone. So I don't know what to do about this other than
tell them to stop messaging you.
Yeah.
If anybody's watching John and texting him,
I know what I'll do. I'll turn messages off entirely.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Well, I want to.
Yeah, it's who is it, John? Say their name.
Yes, say their name out loud, the phone number, email address.
Clowns from Northern California who.
There you go, California guys.
Clowns
from Northern
California.
Isn't coming out
have
there.
To narrow it down. To Mark's point, and Pete's point about growing the sport, I believe that the leagues have not done anything substantial to grow the sport in approximately 30 years. I mean, nothing, because they've killed most of their youth programs, and 86% of the licensed anglers in America started fishing by the time they were 12. There are 0 programs in the big tournament leagues designed for people 12 and younger. So I don't think we're doing a good job there. So as Bass czars, I hope you guys would step in and do something in that regard. I do think growing the sport is our biggest challenge. I do think we've been spinning our wheels for a long time. I was frustrated in my days at B.A.S.S because I was not allowed to write articles on how to buy a used boat or how to fish a farm pond or anything like that, because those were not the kind of articles that would make the big bass boat manufacturers happy. They didn't want to sell a used boat. They want to sell a new boat. You can't launch a 21-foot tournament boat on a farm pond. And that was remarkably frustrating to me. I don't know how we convince these leagues that they benefit from paving the way to the next generation to join. But when I was at Bass, they published, I think, probably some of the last youth-oriented materials. And although an organization like the Bass University is absolutely fabulous, I wonder if there isn't a need for even more beginner-type material. I'm a member of the Bass University. I recommend everybody join. It's tremendous. But I'm looking for a lot of advanced tips there, more so than basics.
We offer a whole series called "Take It to the Bank," which is
That's perfect
for the beginner angler to get on the bank. And I'm excited about a few things. Like the Ike Foundation has a great youth tournament that Jake participated in. My son's name is Jake. For you guys that don't know, he participated last year, had a blast. He's pulling his friends in that are now participating with him. And the nation, the Bass Nation has a youth tournament trail here in our area that he's now in high school. He's a freshman in high school this year, so he's gonna be participating in that. So I'm looking at this from the lens of Bass University. Like, how can I capture these lessons to teach to coaches, to teach to parents, to help them guide their kids to learn this sport? So I'm really invested in that right now because of my son. So we're going to dive in there for sure at Bass U.
Really smart, John. As Bass czar, are you going to dictate to the leagues that they need to take a greater role and a greater responsibility to growing the sport?
Well, yeah, but that should be obvious to them, and there should be people in place, all ready to do that. And if there's not, then shame on them. That kind of initiative shouldn't have to be mandated. It should be organic with the rest of this stuff that it's going to happen. Yeah, I would definitely make sure that there was an emphasis on that.
Hey, John, just because we do this all the time, you're probably gonna have to go out and come back in. But if you put your phone on Do Not Disturb, you can shut that down. You might have to come back into the feed.
Let me see if I can do it just on the phone.
A Bass University tip not to scare the fish right there.
And I thought they were limited to fishing tips. Pete, you impress me no end, sir.
We do what we can. We do what we can. I love
that's a cool.
People are agreeing. They're talking about giant tournaments. That are happening in various parts of the country. Very active board over here for this brand new podcast, guys.
We're fresh out of the box. We're just kids with a dream.
And that's the great thing about fishing. A kid can have a dream to take my spot on the Elite Series, which is what, when I was 10 years old, I told everybody that's what I was going to do. I was going to be a professional fisherman. Sign my high school yearbook, Future Bass Pro. I've seen it in several of my friends' books that I signed over the years. But you can do anything you want. That's the greatest thing about bass fishing. You can fish up here. You can fish on the weekend. You can fish once a month. You can take your kids fishing. That's the greatest thing about it. It encompasses us all.
It is. That's one of the things that I think is so great about fishing generally. Whether you have a cane pole, you're on the bank of a creek, or you're in a 21-foot tournament-ready bass boat, or a giant offshore billfish trolling machine, you can find your own level. And I think that's wonderful. BTC, I know you had a lot of thoughts also about the Bass czar thing. Any questions for these three Bass czars?
I have a thought. Mark's, work that he does with conservation. I'd love to see more of that. the high school and college levels, they get a lot. They get a lot of resources or industry discounts and so forth. I know the nation still does. I think the high school and college probably took a lot of what the nation used to get, but I'd like to see conservation efforts be a requirement to receive all that they get. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's just given, and it's good because it's growing. High school and college, the message board is talking about 500 boat tournaments and so forth. That's good. It's not like you want to discourage that growth, but I feel like what's given should be earned, not just given
Absolutely,
because you're in high
because,
school or college.
one of the things that could be done in one of those huge high school tournaments, say down in Texas, where they get 500 boats, you can't start fishing until you fill one Ziploc bag, or one giant baggie of trash that you get out on the bank, pick it up, bring it in. 500 bags of trash could be alleviated. Here on the Tennessee River, our river is full of microplastics, little bitty tiny pieces of plastic floating through the water. The highest levels in the world are on the Tennessee River. So if we get a lot of the plastics out of the water, that would take, probably in some areas, if you got into the back of a little cove where the water flows in there, it might take 15 minutes. 15 minutes out of each tournament day, that would make a huge impact on the water quality, on teaching a very, very explicit lesson to these young anglers. It would be just a huge benefit to everyone.
John, you are still with us. We can hear you, John. If you're wondering, we still got you on the feed here. Well, let's change gears a little bit. This conversation started where I thought it might end. Actually, you guys are so much more focused on growing the sport and saving the resource than I anticipated this conversation would start. So kudos to you guys. Not that I thought you wouldn't have game. No, it's not that I hate conservation. It's just that when you're a magazine editor or a web editor, you know that conservation bores people to tears.
And they're evil people, Ken. They need to be stopped.
They will put your magazine down and they will stop reading your website if you talk too much about conservation. That's all I'm saying.
I love
takes 15
times.
minutes, Ken. 15 minutes. 15 minutes on a fishing trip can make a huge difference. There's one cat that I follow on Instagram. He's from West Virginia. He fishes out of a little John boat, and he every post he makes, he may only catch 3 or 4 little bass that are this big. He's proud as hell of those fish, and then he'll show a picture of a 5-gallon bucket that's in his boat, and it will be full of beer cans, pop cans, water bottles, paper bags, whatever it is. And it's really cool that Rob Calaprecia does that. It's a very small effort. It takes him a few minutes to do that, but it is teaching the next level, and we need more of that.
No question.
Carl Jochimson does that amazing cleanup at the lakes that he goes to. We've had him on the show, and he's talked about that, and he's awesome about that. And Mark, I love that concept. As I can go back to my son. We're starting a fishing club at his high school, and one of the initiatives is going to be that. Like, what are we doing for conservation? Lake cleanups, help out, where we can. It's going to be part of the membership of the club. I think absolutely key. And I think, Ken, like I feel like we're the elephant in the room is why you brought us all on here was to talk about something that was pretty a little bit more invasive than zebra mussels and gobies.
No, we got y'all on the show because we knew you all would be outstanding guests. You're all extremely bright, extremely experienced, and you all have opinions, and you're not afraid to express them. So that's entirely why you were brought on. We were afraid that Mark might drink too much, but we were willing to take that risk.
So far, so good.
No, we had no fears of any of you guys. Let's change gears. Let's go to the area that I really thought we might have been covering earlier, and that is a topic that I know is top of mind for a lot of fans of the sport out here, and a lot of the way that people know you three guys, and that is through competition. We've had a lot of divisiveness over the past 5 or 6 years in the world of tournament fishing. We've had a lot of variety in formats and things like that. I think a lot of that's been good. I think a lot of that's been distracting and divided the audience. One way I look at it as when you have this multitude of leagues and different formats out there, you still have the pie of what's available for these guys to get in terms of resources, sponsorships, and things like that. But you haven't expanded that pie through any of these new platforms, these new leagues, and so forth. What would you guys do to improve the competitive fishing situation? John, can I start with you? Okay, John may be having trouble hearing us right now. Pete?
Well, I've said this from back in the days when Mark and I competed on the top 100. When we were, that was the only game in town, and all the best anglers available at the time were there competing, and I think the sport needs that. I think it needs everybody that has the gift, that has the drive, that can do, like Mark's got this amazing 30-year career. To be able to be competitive at that top level, there's so much that you have to be talented at. And I think the sport needs that. I think it needs to be all in one place. We see super talented anglers at the MLF that are tearing it up over there. Wheeler, Cannell, just to name a few, Edwin Evers, there's so much talent over there that I'd love to see that in the mix with what's going on over at Bassmasters. I think, there's I like the Bassmasters. Well, I'm jumping around, but I like the Bassmasters farm system. Mark, oh my God, you're going to have a tough field this year, for crying out loud.
Yes. I mean, these little whippersnappers that come out of college now and these young kids that are fishing, they're fantastic anglers. The learning curve has increased so much than when you and I were there, Pete. We waited for a magazine every other month to get the last 2 months of tournament reports. We might be able to figure out something. So now on the water, I might figure out a complete new technique while on Bass Live. And in 30 minutes, a kid goes to the lake and perfects what I'm doing now even more. It's gotten faster and faster. These are talented young anglers. Even though you may not know some of these kids yet, you're going to know some of the 9 that just got in from the EQs. It's a rigorous schedule. It's amazing to me how diverse they are and how damn fearless they are. I was scared to death to make a change because I knew I might get a check if I kept doing what I was doing. They'll bail out and run 70 miles up the damn lake because they've got a gut feeling. Those intuitions don't come that quickly when you're worried about finances and everything like that. It's a tough nut. The one thing I would do as a bass czar, to help grow the sport some more, Ken, is I'd knock some damn cost off some entry fees. Let's get some of this back down and put some of that burden back on the organization. Now, I get it that these are not non-for-profit organizations. I get that. But let's make this easier so that the organization can work with the angler can work with the organization, and that whole epicenter of back and forth can last longer and make careers of 30 years. If you look at the history of bass fishing, there's not that many people that have stayed in the career for 30 plus years. So that takes a special individual to do that. Take me out of the mix. That takes either talent or the ability to promote, the ability to teach, or the ability to do other things, or maybe a little bit of all of that to get someone from point A in 1991 to where we are now in 2023. Let's make it easier financially because there are some great talents. Am I saying I'm the most talented angler? Hell no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I'm a very fortunate angler that figured a way to create a longevity in a career. I have roomed with, I have fished with anglers that I couldn't even shine the damn light for them to see by, that couldn't do it just on tournament winnings. So tournament fishing at this level is a hell of a lot more than just tournament winnings.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know. I think I've met a couple of anglers who've been able to survive off winnings. I'm sorry, Pete, where were you going?
I look forward to hearing who those anglers are, because I don't believe that's true. And and
they didn't have to, because naturally they were winning enough that they had a nice sponsor package going as well.
Yeah. Well, when we were I was just a kid, 97, 90, 99, doing pretty good, making some classics, won my first tournament in 99, making checks, but man, still not bringing enough home to take care of business at home. And I felt like it was always, the big focus was on the media side of things, was promoting first place, 100 grand. Somebody wins 100 grand. It's a big deal. They're trying to capture the audience's attention. And I understand that. But I've always felt the focus should have been last place. Like when we were at top 100, the last place guy ought to be able to take care of his family. Like the minimum salary at the NFL or MLB or any other sport, right? We ought to make sure that guy is square. And, and then we can build, I don't know, adjust entry fees, payouts, adjust sponsorships, or do what we got to do. But I always felt that they were looking at the wrong place, because I was never the last place. Well, I was the last place guy maybe once or twice, but mostly
it's gonna happen, Pete. It's gonna happen.
But when you'd come in and you'd be making a classic, and you'd be like, oh my gosh, there's not a lot of revenue here. And I'd like to see a consolidation. I want to see all the talent in one place. I want to see them take care of the field, or pay it out, make entry fees and payouts such that the anglers are compensated for what they're doing and that's from the angler's perspective, which I was still am.
Well, consolidating everything is something that Boyd Duckett is pretty open about, saying that's his goal. But let me say this. Professional anglers, the top level of tournament fishing in this country, has always been a bunch of guys fishing for their own money. It started that way in what I'll call the modern era in 1967, when Ray Scott put on his first tournament. It'll be that way probably until I die. Yeah. I don't see a path out, because I don't think the sport, and I'm talking about not just the sport of bass fishing, I'm talking about the sport of competitive bass fishing, tournament bass fishing as we know it. I don't think it's healthy enough. I don't think it draws a big enough audience. I don't think it's significant enough in the media world out there to do better. And we look at the leagues and we think, oh, these are big leagues and they're making a lot of money. I'm not so sure about that. Exactly. Look at the size of Bassmaster magazine over the last 4 or 5 years. It's 72 pages. The last time it was 72 pages or less was 1973.
But Ken, we've changed our media format. Our media
that money is going over the web. Well, some of it has, but on the web you have so much more competition.
Our media format's gone from print to digital. Everything now is an instant gratification. So that's not a real fair compromise or comparison there.
It is. Here's why.
Okay.
Because you make a lot more off a page in a magazine than you do off a comparable effort or a comparable spend on the internet. Plus, when you go from a magazine where there are a handful of competitors, let's say that in the heyday of all of this, you also had Field and Stream and Outdoor Life, you had B.A.S.S, and maybe you had a couple others. When you shift it over and you go digital with it, boom. It's not just a handful of competitors. It's tens of thousands of competitors that are dividing those eyeballs and dividing those ad dollars, and it's diminishing what they're making. I don't think these leagues are doing all that well. I think that it might change if there was just one of them, but with three of them, I think it's a struggle.
This has changed everything right here.
Absolutely.
It's instant gratification. It is a way to learn faster. It has parceled out that pie where it was here. Now it's here, but it goes with so many more pieces. It's the same.
Yes.
I mean, in 1967, Ray Scott's first tournament was $100 entry fee on a $2,000 take.
20 to 1.
A 20 to 1.
What is it now? It's worse than that. It's a little bit worse. It's a little bit worse.
It still is, kid. It's $5,000 to get in to win 100. It's 20 to 1. The only thing that has changed is inflation and the times. It's more expensive to do things. So nothing has changed there. But that doesn't diminish what you can do as a bass pro to further the sport, to teach, to make better anglers. That's the whole goal here. It's not about me making $1 million a year. I would love to make $1 million a year fishing. It's about the due diligence and the responsibility of the position that I've been placed in because of my longevity of my career to do better for everyone, not just in tournaments.
And how do you do that?
In fishing.
How do you do that?
I don't know, Ken. I feel at this point in my life that it is really important for me to go and spend an afternoon with a high school team of 12 kids, plant 675 cypress trees, fight the Asian shark fight, do those things that will have long-lasting effects other than what have you done for me? Ken, do you know the Bass Fisherman's Handshake? The professional bass fisherman's handshake? What have you done for me lately? And that's not how it works. It is what you can do for that sponsor. It is what that sponsor can do for the sport. And it is about bringing people in to the goodness of the sport. Damn the split in fishing. I don't give a shit. I'm so sick and tired of talking about this. LIV, PGA. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Yes.
Make
all you said.
Make your point and do something good, whether it's picking up a damn beer can on the side of the road, whether it's taking a kid fishing. I don't care. Fishing has been good to the Mark Menendez family, and I want to give back at this point. It's time to give back. Ken, do you know what the 3 words, and Pete, you'll get this. What are the 3 words that every damn bass fisherman in this world is fluent with? Me, mine, and I. Me, mine, and I.
I thought that was changing. I thought we had a new generation of anglers coming in who are perhaps a little more savvy, a little better educated, a little better prepared. And I thought they understood the role of the sponsor and how they had to help the sponsor and how ultimately they needed to create sales and generate revenues and create a symbiotic relationship. But then a young man about a month ago put out a video that wasn't a video. It was a suicide note. It was a suicide.
I've got the music pick. Jacob, he is a competitor. I don't know him well, but it has got to be Dire Straits. Money for nothing.
Oh, it gets a lot worse.
Ooh, damn, hell, I thought
we've got a top 10 list tonight. The top 10 theme songs that he's considering for 2024. But anyway,
Mark, I'm with you. I just want to see these kids. I want to, you're right, give back, but I want to make the high school and college kids, especially the rich ones, make them work before they go fishing. Put them to work. Make them give back first.
Do we really need to add? Wow. Do we really need to add another barrier to them? Do we really need to put them to work before we let them engage in the sport? I think that's I think that's another impediment that maybe we don't need.
I'm czar for this. Maybe I don't get voted czar, but if I was,
Okay, Pete. I said I didn't want to be under Pete's thumb. Now it's moved to Brian. I don't want to be under Brian's thumb here. That's a tough world. You guys from Jersey.
Well, you're past the age of having to do manual labor in order to be allowed to go fishing.
I just dress well. That's my key to success here. John, I'm sorry you hadn't been with us. I know you've had some technical difficulties. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, Kenny.
Okay, cool. We've kind of transitioned a little bit into the role of competitive fishing and how the Bass Czar might impact that. We've talked about putting a little burden on the pros as far as helping to grow the sport and find ways to contribute and give back to the community. And Mark and Pete both do a fabulous job of that. What can you add to the conversation? What is your plan as Bass Czar?
I'm sorry I missed most of that, but I was going to bring up one more thing. I know you guys were talking about some different aspects of Bassmaster and MLF. One of the things I would bring to Bassmaster is the mandatory updates of the scoring of what's going on. I know a lot of anglers don't like that. I know they don't want to do it, but it changes the game. In an Elite Series event right now, what you basically have is you start the morning with like 110 different sub competitions. You've got each angler against the fish. And then at the end of the day, we all get back together and we parade the bags up across the stage for the weigh-in. And that's the second part of it. If it's me, I eliminate that part, and instantly by having the mandatory updates every 15 minutes, you make it one competition right now that is continuous throughout the 8-hour day. And then you eliminate those 2 or 3 hours at the end of the day where you've got to stand in lines with bags and holding tanks and that whole deal. I would steal that from MLF and stick it into the Elite Series. And I know a lot of anglers don't like it.
Yeah, losing the stage aspect certainly kills a lot of your fan activation. So I see arguments for and against. I can see it's good for conservation. I like it from that aspect, but when you kill the fan activation element, that's certainly an issue.
I don't know if you're killing it though, Ken. Isn't there other ways to do it other than bringing fish to the stage?
Sure there are, but none of them have been very effective in my experience. If you can have a lot of we talk about the sport being super fan friendly, but I don't think that's true. I mean, if you go to an average, let's throw the Elite Series out there, for example, on a Saturday or a Sunday when they cut first down to 50 anglers and then down to 10, what are the odds that your favorite guys are still there? Rick Clunn did not have a good year. David Fritz did not have a good year. Those guys were rarely around on Saturday or Sunday.
Right.
And being my age and having followed the sport as long as I have, those would be two guys I'd be making a beeline for.
Right.
And they're not there. That would be frustrating to me as a fan. I hate cut. I like obligatory situations where guys have to show up and hang around the way in and engage with the fans. I think that's great for the sport. The sport's not nearly as fan friendly as it could be.
Well, I absolutely still have that part of it.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Pete.
Except when I'm in it. Then I love it.
Well, and these guys here, these anglers, pro anglers here that we have on the show are exceptions to that rule. They are enormously engaging. Pete's partner on so many things, Mike Iaconelli, is perhaps the most engaging angler I know. Yeah, I wasn't sure what I would think about Mike Iaconelli when I first met him because I'd seen the screaming and all that stuff. But then to watch that man sign the very last autograph and to get down on one knee to get the same level as a kid, that won me over. And I said, this man is good for the sport. That's not everybody.
He's the easiest interview in the business, is he? You only really need one question. One question, and he can go for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
No problem. True. And you got a pile full of notes.
Absolutely.
This is very true.
I give Mike the benefit of the doubt. With all the jumping up and down, the screaming and whatever, when I saw him with kids lined up, the way he treated each individual, each family, as if it were his own family, at that point I went, okay, Mikey, I get it. I can live with this. And I think I think if we go back to part of the conversation earlier, he's one of the 5 anglers that I know in my career that were talented enough to do it on winnings. Mike, Kevin, Jay Yellis, Clark Windlet, maybe Denny, towards the ending of his career. Those anglers were able to do that. But Mike has parlayed personality and being personable, both of those, to bring more people to the sport than any other angler. I love Mikey. I give him a hard time every chance I can. Try to get one up on him. I don't do a good job. I know Becky's back there driving the show. I love Becky. She's always been so sweet, so kind, so smart. That's the total package of a professional angler. It goes back to what you can do for the sport, not what the sport can do for you. Mike figured that out at a very early age. I remember years ago when I was still in college, and there was a team tournament here on Kentucky Lake, and a pro angler and another pro angler were coming to fish it because at the end of the year there was a bass boat given away in the championship that would be at another lake. So I went and fished all week, Pete. You'd love this. I fished my ass off all week. I skipped class. I fished all week, and I caught a big fat 0. And the pro angler won the tournament. I went to that pro angler and I said, congratulations. You beat my brains in, but congratulations. Here's my hand and congratulations. And he kind of went, yeah, we knew we'd win. And I went, okay. So that lit a fire under my ass to understand that if I ever was to be a pro angler, I would never treat someone like that. So the converse to the whole story, Ken, this is really cool. I went to a Bass Pro Shops to do a day for Lou's, and that pro angler was there. And here comes this kid about 10 years old, and he says, Mr. Menendez, will you please sign an autograph for me? And I'm standing there talking to that pro angler that had snubbed me off after he won a tournament when I was 21 years old. And the kid goes, thank you so much, Mr. Menendez, for signing the autograph. And then that pro angler was kind of like, oh, wait, you need a card for me. Here you go. Let me sign something for you. And I thought that was justification right there for that guy being such an a-hole to me when I was young. And I thought that is just, karma is tough sometimes. So, we are very lucky in this industry that those of us that get to fish for a living, it makes me no different than the guy that came to my house and cleaned out the sewer system today. It's no different than the guy that helped me cut trees today. It's no different than the guy that helped me dig a ditch the day before yesterday. We're lucky. And I think sometimes a lot of anglers really get lost in the stratosphere of what goes on, of cameras and interviews, John, and things like that. And you really think it's really important. But when you've had trouble and strife in your life and tough times, you realize that the fishing industry is one of the closest knit, kindest group of people that you've ever been. But karma can be ugly sometimes.
Yeah.
No question.
Totally agree, Mark.
John, let me come back to you.
The YouTube, the message board on YouTube was overwhelmingly wants you to name the angler.
Just whisper it to me, Mark.
Maybe a couple more hours past happy hour we can talk that, but I'm not going to do
initials
that.
And hometown.
Initials.
I can't do that. I'm going to be
rhymes with
on that one.
Exactly. All right, John. What about the industry at large? Let's talk about manufacturers, distributors, things like that. Is there something that you have to say to them as Bass are? Or are they kind of an uncontrollable element in the mix?
Yeah, from the way I would tend to look at it, they're an outside entity as you're focusing on, and they're really not, because they're a hugely important part of this, but you have to keep them separate. I spent so many years in the newspaper business, and back even when during my career was mostly the 80s and the 90s and there was such a separation between the editorial and the advertising that it was like a brick wall. and nobody wanted to go there. So you just didn't deal, each side just left the other to make the best of what it had to do and face the challenges they were presently facing. So what I would have to tell the industry is, hey, you've got a lot of smart people. You've got access to a lot of smart people. You've got to figure this out while I do what needs to be done for the sake of competition here. You've just got to deal with it is basically where I'd go.
I think that's very realistic. I would only add that because you were covering Super Bowls and World Series games and the US Open in golf, you were dealing with sports that have a tremendous amount of money. And then you change gears and go to a passion of yours personally, to the bass fishing world, which is generally speaking kind of a struggling economy or a very cyclical economy. And it's much more difficult to command that. But what about you, Pete? Is there something that Bass czar Pete Gluszek has to say to manufacturers and industry generally?
Well, it's interesting because when I was preparing for the show, I thought about this from three different perspectives. You know, you have the owners of the event, you know, the Bass MLF. You have the competitors. Actually, there's four. You have the fans, and then you have the companies that are involved with it. So they all have different interests, and you know, you have to try to work with those various interests to try to assist. Well, what is the manufacturer's interest? Well, their interest is to sell products, you know, to generate revenue and sell products through this endeavor. And they need sales, they need exposure to be able to do that. They need credibility a lot of times to be able to do that. And they, you know, that's their interest here. And the bigger the numbers of exposure, the more they're going to be able to sell their products. You know, so you know, that to me leads. I want to go back just a half a step because I wanted to chime in on transparency. And you know, we talked about, you know, Ken, you said that there's not that much money in this industry, or we don't think it's that big, or we're guessing what it is. I've never really seen what the revenue is that's coming into the tournament organizations that are putting on these events. I've always, as the czar, I'd want my Viking longship with the presidents, the pro anglers, the sponsors, and I'd all want everybody rowing in the same direction. And that would be my objective. You know, but as a competitor and kind of an outsider, I never really knew. Like when we were going through that stuff with the PAA and through the split, you know, the anglers were, you know, they were upset, you know, because there was a lot, you know, they weren't making the revenue that maybe they thought they should have or was capable of, and we didn't really know what the revenue that was actually coming in and was being distributed and being made. There was no way to know that. So I remember saying this, Brian, when we were on the show. I asked for transparency from Jerry McInnes, like to let us know.
Sorry.
You know, dude,
Sorry about that.
Here's the thing. You tell me that our profit, you know, we're underwater as an organization, anglers, right? Now you have a bunch of motivated anglers that want to work to help. Like, you know, Mark would, you know, he would step up, say, what can I do to assist us in bringing in more revenue to this whole program? You know, but without knowing that, without having that transparency of that, it always caused a bit of a conflict between the anglers and the owners. And I guess, you know, that's pretty obvious, but I don't know. That's what my goal as the czar I need to get everybody rowing in the same direction. We all got to agree. And it takes a real leader to do it. It's really hard. We had Ray Scott doing it. Like you said, he was the OG. And and also, Boyd Duckett, I got to give him credit. Like, how in the world did he arrange all the anglers together to move and do something as one? That was an amazing feat.
Absolutely. Yeah. Boyd doesn't get enough credit as a leader, I think. Now, whether or not they're successful, whether or not they've met their goals is another matter, but no question, Boyd is a guy with a vision and a leader.
That's why I say that job, do you want that job? I don't want that job. I mean, that job is impossible, and don't give it to me, because they say give the job to the guy that doesn't want it. I don't know. I'm not taking that job.
Pete, you're talking about B.A.S.S utopia. You're talking about a utopian society.
Yeah.
But when you come down to it, as an angler, we're all independent contractors.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We're all
what's good for somebody is not good for somebody else.
That's
exactly
right, John.
But you can't develop a consensus. It's just not possible.
It's a zero-sum game unless you grow the pie.
Right.
Absolutely. And those percentages of that pie are going to stay in certain places that not everybody's going to be able to reach to.
Right.
Like I said, I mentioned the fortune and the fame. The fame is fleeting. The fame is, I've heard this 1,000 times. You're only as good as your last tournament. And one of the things that made the early years
so short-sighted
B.A.S.S so successful was the distance between the events. So if I was fortunate enough, or Pete was fortunate enough to win a tournament, it was going to be several weeks that you could ride that success as being the recent tournament champion. Now, within minutes of the tournament being over, there's another one starting. And I think that has been the serial dilution of the significance of a tournament win over the last 5 to 8 years at the most, with the advent of this damn thing that I hate so much. I hate this thing.
Yeah.
What
year was it, Kenny? What year was it when Woo Daves won the Classic and then didn't fish the following year?
Yeah, 2000 he won the Classic, and as John is mentioning, he realized he could earn more money by going around from tackle store to tackle store and getting appearance money rather than trying to compete on the tournament trail.
Now, how preposterous is that idea in 2023?
It's non-existent because the rule change.
No, it's not. It's not even on the radar. It's
the Woo rule. You got to fish the highest level of B.A.S.S competition, or you don't get to go back and defend your title.
It doesn't matter anyway, because nobody would consider it. They would look at the specifics of that plan and say, no, and that's not going to work.
How shrewd was that of Woo as a businessman to take care of that opportunity, not have the expenses of travel, not have the expenses of daily fishing, not having entry fees, and just bank the money.
Yeah.
Woo ruled in that situation. I thought it was a great business opportunity.
No question.
But it's one that no longer is a feasible option. Say Jeff Gustafson just, bagged it in March and decided that he was just going to do shows and tackle shops and whatever. That's not going to get it done here in 2023 or any time in the future.
No.
And also, to add to that is, a diminished value of winning the Classic, because there are YouTube guys that can command a bigger audience and a bigger presence than even a Classic champ can right now.
Absolutely.
I agree with you. Yeah, no doubt.
What diversification? You have to be a very, Ken, in your immense, stock portfolio that you have, which I know you haven't. I mean, you're not all vested in one thing. And an angler has to realize that he cannot invest his whole career in tournament winnings or just promotion or just working on conservation. You have to do everything. And that's the one thing I don't think a lot of anglers are willing to do, to be diversified, to take the pitfalls of having a bad tournament to having the high of a great tournament where he makes some money. You have to make those peaks and valleys just kind of be a lot smoother than ups and downs.
Yeah.
But you see it in Fouts. He's diversified. You know, he went from just wanting to fish to now he just wants to fish and make YouTube videos complaining about fishing. So he's diversifying.
Who did that?
Jacob Fouts.
Oh yes, Fouts. Yeah, I watched you guys.
So I mean, there's some growth there. He's diversified.
Well, he's getting there. He's understanding that it's not just all about the rod and reel.
You got to complain about the rod and reel.
It's where you have to get to a credible level of being in one of the top echelons of the tours. You know, so it's so much more.
Yeah, and what an advantage for say a guy like Scott Martin, who saw all of this through the 70s and through the 80s and watched the entire progression. You know, when he went out on tour, he was ready to deal with all of the peripheral stuff. You know, he's a pretty good fish catcher.
Right.
And he's a sponsor's dream.
Communication. It's all about communication.
Absolutely, yeah. He looks good. He talks well. He's got the whole package. But he did not have the learning curve that a Fouts or a lot of other people, or that learning curve, that learning happened well before he was ever in front of any cameras.
Sure.
Yeah, he had a bird's eye view at everything that was going on in the sport for decades, for generations. What an advantage.
Most of all of our rules are because of Roland anyway. So there you go.
I'm
gonna go there. Sorry.
Probably got to lean on Roland's network a little bit occasionally.
The one unique thing I'll say about Roland, I've fished with him a couple times, and I've never been in the boat with anybody of all the people I've been fishing with that wanted to catch the next fish any worse than Roland Martin did. I fished with him in salt water out off the shores of the Mississippi River out in Venice. We went way offshore, but that man loves to catch the next fish better than any human being I've ever been in a boat with.
And he loves to eat those bass like he did with me when we roomed together at Lake Russell back in 1997. We happened to room together. Mark, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but we're Guy's house. I got one room, he's got the other, and Chuck Economou's with us, and he's like, "Don't buy any dinner tonight. I got you." And I thought that was awesome. I'm broke my first year.
Sure.
And he's like, "Are you ready?" I'm like, "Yeah." I thought he was going to bring mahi or some exotic swordfish or some weird thing. And he goes into his live well and proceeds to take out 20 largemouth that he caught at practice that day at the tournament. And him and the guide start flaying them out. And we dined on largemouth bass the night before the first day of the tournament with Roland.
You know why you ate bass?
With that.
You know why you ate bass there, Pete? Is because in that tournament, I saw him walking up the hill with a shotgun because the turkeys were hollering up in the hills and he didn't kill one. That's the real story right there, Pete. You could have had wild turkey, but you had to catch 12-inch bass to have dinner. So I get it. Yep. I get it.
Oh, that's awesome. Him and Jimmy both carried shotguns in their boats, man. They'd hear those gobblers going, and they'd be in April. Forget about it, man. They're stopping practice and they're going up and hunting that turkey.
Yeah, and in that tournament, Pete, at Russell, Jimmy Houston's going up the hill, and I come by. Chris is in the boat, sitting in the boat, and I pull up next to Chris. I said, "Where's Jimmy?" Chris, he goes, "Well, he's up there turkey hunting." I said, "Chris, that's the state park. Start honking your horn to get his ass out of there because he's going to get a ticket." That's a real story, Ken Duke. That's the real truth right there.
I love it. I love the real stories.
I caught lunker the day after I ate bass.
Should have done it more often.
You became one with the fish.
I cannot believe it. But Epic Eric is on the message board, and you're talking about Roland Martin rules, and he suggested we haven't talked much about cheating as a czar.
There you go.
What do we do? I mean, there's a lot of, I hear complaints all over from the B.A.S.S family that, hey man, the tournament directors are soft. They're not putting the hammer down on these guys for failing, lie detectors and failing some information rule violations. What are you going to do as czar, Mark? You're in this. Are you going to make any changes?
Well, I would love to see the rules be yes or no rules, and black and white, either this or that. I've called foul on myself more than once when I got in a hurry, wasn't aware of my situation, and I broke rules and I called foul. It cost me winning a B.A.S.S Elite 50 out of Paducah because I got above a bridge that I needed a life jacket on. And on the way back, the only person that saw me catch the fish was my dog, Barkley. I caught enough to win the tournament on the way back down the river. I would like to see some of those scandals, like the one that was the one guy that was putting the fish in the box and caught them for years on the FLW tournament. I would have loved to have seen the hammer been brought down. It's theft by deception. It's the same thing of the walleye cheaters. It's theft by deception. I would love to see it. Those guys have paid a price, and one of the guys evidently has had another wildlife violation. Is going to pay another price.
I saw.
I wish we could make our rules where they were yes and no rules, very simplistic, no gray, no interpretation thereof. Forward facing is another one. I would love to have seen a limitation on the forward facing. I think what you're going to see in 2024 is an absurd change in fishing habits. Wait till you see how many damn transducers are on my boat for next year. Yeah, I got my ass handed to me last season. I saw one of the most successful anglers that used forward facing last year. I never saw him make a cast in practice. I fished around him a lot in practice. I've never saw him in the tournaments, and he won an event and won a major award. You bet your ass I'm going to change. I would like to see it being an absolute finite square playing field where everybody has the same chance.
Yeah.
$25,000 in transducers, I guess I'm going to buy them. $25,000 worth of units, I guess I'm going to have them on there. It's going to be a Lawrence fest on my boat this year. Get ready and watch. That's what I don't like about the fishing. On your last podcast, Ken, or one of the podcasts where the anglers were fighting back and forth, the new kid and the old kid with the long hair fighting about, okay, I'm not mentioning names. I would love it. I understand both points. I understand Ben's point that times have changed. I understand the fact that Randy is very, he's very enamored over that time period in which skill of fishing was an important thing. And I'll leave that thought with one thing. When we got GPS and we could push a button and push waypoint, and that's part of your opening deal here, the waypoint of Bass After Dark. I had the ability, Ken, to run down Kentucky Lake with my hair on fire, pull up on a ledge that there's one stump, and I could make one cast or two casts and hit that stump because of the skills I had developed called triangulation. GPS completely robbed us of those skills, but GPS created new skills. So I'm excited to see what the new skills are going to be if they don't harm the resource, and what skills I have honed and what Pete has honed for years, like the angle in which we make the cast and how boat position affects everything and seasonal patterns that had dictated our whole careers, what that's going to change. Because basically right now I see all of those skills that I honed for all these years, you can throw them out. Now it's about riding around playing Space Invaders or Galagia or whatever that game was back in the 80s. When you see a bunch of dots, punch a button, come back and make that cast. And that's where we've gone. I understand.
That's just going to take it farther and farther. That takes it farther and farther from the realm of the weekend fisherman, and that's defeating some of the objectives we've talked about previously in bringing more people into it. And then you've also got the auxiliary problem in these days of live streaming on the water. Nobody wants to watch that shit. I don't, and I don't watch it. I won't watch it. I'll come back when the day is over and do my job off the numbers that I see on the screen. I am not going to watch that stuff. I'm not going to watch a guy stare at a screen and then flip a drop shot out without even physically looking where it's going. His attention doesn't move from the screen. He opens the bail, makes a little flip, and waits for the bite. That is not fun to watch.
Well, that's how
Bass is losing audience on that.
Ben Milliken now, because I disagree. Man, I love it. I am a lifelong learner. By definition, I'm the dean of the B.A.S.S University. We're learning stuff that is fascinating. Like the techniques to trigger these strikes, it's not like that. It's not like see a mark, throw at it. Like maybe day one, you're fishing for the wrong fish. There's a lot of things that get involved, but there's all kinds of radical techniques that guys are using, like the fuzzy cube that Koyo's using. There's the 3/4 ounce jig that the Tyler is using at JT is coming in, JT Tompkins that won the points. They're using heavy power baits to trigger strikes off the forward facing units. So there's a ton to learn here, and it's not that simple. It's fascinating as a student of the sport, and I'm all in with it. We're teaching people how to do it. Here's the other thing, and I want to argue this point because I think it's worth arguing that the people coming into the sport love it. They absolutely love it. And
what if they don't have 25 grand though? How much are they going to love it then?
Well, you need about 2,000, right, to get involved.
No, you don't. Not when you're competing. You don't need 2,000.
Well, you're talking about a top one of 1%. Right, we're talking right now about people coming into the sport, and I'm telling you, you put a kid in your boat, and you turn on live, and he is engaged. Before you take a kid in your boat, and Mark, you would have to go into your visualization. You'd have to explain to him what we're doing. There's a stump out here; he can't see it. There's current coming around. There's bait fish that can often be present here. And you're describing it to a kid that can't see anything. Now you can turn on live and he can see the bait. He can see the stump. He can see the lure and the cast. And even if he's not catching anything, he's immediately engaged. He's engaged in the process. And you can catch nothing all day, but they'll continue to stare at the screen because it's active. It's got biomass of a variety of things that are going on. Like,
you're right. And like watching Ike's son Vegas take to it and how good he is with it is insane. I mean, it's wild. And I think it does suit the younger generation. Their minds are fresh and they're not bogged down with all the years of knowledge like Mark was referencing and all the absolutely meaningless category of B.A.S.S University seminars you now have, because throw them all the fuck out. All you got to do is just go looking. But
too. It all plays a factor. You can throw forward-facing sonar in a cove and scan around, and if there's no fish there because you're there in the winter and the fish aren't going to be in 2 feet in the winter in this cove, you're not going to find them. The rules of fishing exist. It exists still. Every technique that you've learned exists still. You just need to learn how to apply it to the new technology.
Yeah.
That's
perfect.
the
listen, I like it too, Pete. But I think the honest conversation, it's not should it be banned, should it be wide open. I think that is a legit argument for should there be a limitation. There's limitations on everything. There's a limitation on your outboard. The government lets you have guns, but you can't have, tanks. So there's limitations on things. There's a line drawn. And I think when Mark's talking about, he just dropped $50,000 in electronics in his boat. That's kind of ridiculous. And if he doesn't, he's not keeping up.
But
he's not keeping up and being able to compete with everybody else. I mean, that's his problem.
Here's the cool thing. I'm the one guy that didn't win a tournament last year, but I'm the guy that got closest of every tournament that was held on the professional ranks of winning event without forward facing. At Santee, I saw the fish on the trees in practice, and I saw them leaving when I pointed the radar at them. So I turned my goods off, and I still got my ass handed a 14-pound deficit between first and second. I finished second in that event. I've been to a couple of places here in this fall fishing. Douglas Lake was one of those at the Pittman Creek wholesale event the other day, that when I put the radar on a fish, the fish hauled ass. They are going to get adaptive to this. There will be changes to this. And the more serious anglers that go to these places that are fished frequently, it's going to get tougher to catch them. I did a photo shoot on a private lake the other day, and those moron fish had no idea what the radar was. I caught a 30-pound bag in 15 minutes on the brand new Strike King Gravel Dog crankbait, and those fish were looking around like, huh? What? Oh, here comes a plug. I caught every damn one of them I saw. So that's the challenge that's going to happen. I don't care what the technique was, Pete. Remember the day when suspending a rogue was the most lethal thing that there ever was? Remember the day when a deep diving crankbait? Everything changes, and that's what's dynamic in our world. That's what's dynamic in the water column, and that's what's dynamic about fishing. And
but what's the next step in the evolution? What's the next step? Once the fish get savvy to this, where does it go? Does it go back to things that don't scare the fish, or does it go, we make stuff that still does the same thing without scaring the fish? That's where it goes.
Sure. Yeah.
AI is going to take over conservation. It goes back to conservation.
People will always stay ahead of fish. Scientists will always be ahead of fish.
Yes. Yep. I agree.
You got to trigger the strikes. We had Drew Benton on, and he was talking about he was arguing as an advocate for forward facing, and at the time when it came out, he would catch like 90% of the fish. Now it's down to like 5%. 5% are being caught off of what he's seeing on forward facing sonar now. So it's going back to talent. It's going back to fish understanding, like using, Mark, your 30 years of watching fish move and behaviors and visualizing how they would relate to a crankbait, react to it. Now you're seeing it live, and you're going to use that skill set. You're going to be dependent on that. It's not going to be as easy as throwing at a mark. It's continuing to evolve. Here's the other thing. Let me say this too. We talked about the young people that are engaged with it. I'm telling you right now, like the older folks are engaged equally well. You get a new person in fishing, brand new. Crappie fishing is a great example. The crappie world is doing really well because people are now engaged. Even they can look at the market, fish for them, and it's expanding. It's really doing really well right now. And it's the same thing. We're going to see in bass fishing. You're going to see in a lot of different species, but it's highly engaging to those anglers that embrace it. And I think it's going to open up the window. Greg Hackney speaking for us at Shreveport, Louisiana this year at the B.A.S.S, one of the greatest mind in my opinion, one of the naturals. He's just such a natural fisherman, and he is when the mapping came out, he was like, it's the greatest time to be a shallow angler ever, because the new mapping is pulling people off the bank. And now forward is doing that too. So I think it's going to be some of the best times to be a bank angler right now too. So I don't know. I'm an advocate of it. I love teaching about it and learning about it. So there you go.
Well, the crappie populations will end up being the canary in the coal mine.
Yes.
Because of their tendency to group up constantly. If there's some resource managers who are worried about this, if we start seeing a decline in the crappie populations in a lot of the nation's top crappie fisheries,
100%.
we're going to know we've got a problem.
100%.
And they're already seeing that. Guys are just whacking crappie. It's completely changed the tournament scenario in the crappie world. The guys who used to have the big spider rigs and stuff like that, the guys who used to skip docks, they're gone.
Yeah,
they're just gone from that world. And it's all the guys with the forward facing. I want to do a quick poll of our three czars here with regard to forward facing sonar. You have three choices. You can ban it, no holds barred, or some limitations. You don't have to tell me what the limitations might be, but tell me if you'd ban it, no holds barred, or some limitations. John.
Ban it.
Ban it.
Woo.
Mark.
I would love to ban it, but I think the realistic thing is limit it.
But you're the czar.
Well, I'm the czar. Then I'm going to limit it because as a professional angler, it's my job to learn every tool to help me be a better angler. My competitive heart would love to say, ban that, kick it back, make it more instinctual than it is. But the realistic thing with the economics that are involved, with what the
sponsors that are involved,
sponsors, things like that, make it limited. 48 inches of screen is all you can have, and one forward facing unit, one transducer, not 5, not 8, not 12. I think you'll see guys that'll have 6, 7, 8 units on their boats next year. Wow. I'm not one of those guys, Ken. I didn't spend 50 grand, but I spent a lot more than I would have.
All right, Pete, are you going to no holds barred, ban it, or somewhere in between?
You are not going to be able to see my trolling motor shaft for all the transducers.
Stop it. You're a flipper, Pete. You've only ever caught them flipping.
Well, how much technology do you need to throw a black Senko, Pete?
I'm telling you,
yes.
I am a flipper, and this year, Tyler Rivette and Greg Hackney are both teaching about how they're using it in the dirt. Interesting.
I know guys in Florida who are using the forward facing to look under matted vegetation to find fish to punch to.
Yes.
And
we saw Kennedy.
Kudos to them.
Kennedy at Okeechobee using it to see the biomass move around the shallows. We saw the fish being caught off the beds at Sandy Cooper using it. So the shallow applications are just they're just getting started.
My best shallow water application story.
I got on eBay, Ken, and I bought 16 different Lowrance paper graphs for next season. Wait till you see this.
You're gonna kill a lot of trees, Mark. Where are you gonna find the rolls of graph paper?
It's recyclable paper. It's all recyclable.
A quick anecdote about my experience with shallow use of forward-facing sonar. I was on Gros Savon about a year and a half ago with Justin Hamner. Wonderful young man, cool guy. All he wanted to do was hear me tell stories about Aaron Martins and other pros he really admired, including Mark Menendez. And got a lot of terrible stories about Mark. So anyway, we're out there and he's throwing a spook and he's using his forward facing to see what might be under there. Meanwhile, there's about a 6 or 7 foot alligator stalking his spook, just swimming lazily over to his spook. And I'm thinking, well, surely he sees this alligator and he's going to yank that bait away. And I'm not going to say anything to him because I'll look like an idiot. No, the alligator ate his bait. And I said, Justin, you got one. And he said so. He hooked the alligator. I was blown away that he was that focused, not on the bait he could see on the surface.
Yeah.
But on the forward-facing unit.
Where's Justin from?
What's that?
Where's Justin from, Ken?
Is he from Alabama? I'm not sure.
That tells you all you need to know.
Not sure what that means. My mom was from Alabama, but we'll take it.
Okay.
I hate to do this. Go ahead, BTC. What you got?
Yeah, I want to throw one out to the czars. Following up what Ken just threw at you, the A-rig.
Ah, yeah,
Good
great
call.
one. Great one.
Johnny?
Back when that bait was prominent, I was in favor of banning it too, and I was glad to see it taken off of the top circuits. That's one that I keep out of the Elite Series and the Bass Pro Tour, and probably the AAA too. I take it out of the opens, but for BFLs and whatnot, let them have it. It's not. It didn't have the staying power as a serious deep water killer that it looked like it might for a while. So I would say keep it off the big tours. Everybody else go for it. It's kind of like, a lot of golf equipment can't be used on the PGA Tour or on any professional tour, but the recreational players can play with it. I'd give it that kind of treatment.
Well, the A-rig BTC, it basically hit on a predatory instinct. And what it actually came down to was a predatory instinct that was very, very effective in cold water. So the national tours don't fish water much under 50 degrees hardly ever. So does it need to be banned from our leagues? Probably so, just because it's got so damn many hooks on it. It hooks fish, and one bites it and it gets 6 hooks in him, 5 hooks in him. That's not a way to treat the resource. But it did hit upon a predatory instinct, and it was pretty impressive at the time. But it has kind of limited itself to cooler water situations now, so it's not that big of a deal in my opinion.
Bring it,
Pete.
Come on, A-rigs all around, transducers and A-rigs. Let's go. I love
it's like the Wild West in Pete's world out here. It's just
it taught us a better way to catch fish. And it showed us what fish were at times, before we knew, like before we had forward facing. And it's an amazing tool. It's totally dropped off as far as being able to trigger strikes like it once was capable of. But and it put Paul Elias in the crosshairs front and center. A great champion, ahead of the curve, just crushing it. So I don't see it as a detriment in things now. And I want to give a shout out to Tom Lang of the ShareLunker program in Texas, because I've talked to him about the I guess the ecology of the situation, and using the canary in the coal mine scenario. He feels that this is why the DNRs are here. We are here to be able to recognize if the species should fall off. That's why we're here, and they have all the mechanisms in place. They're looking at it. They're aware of it. Some are more so than others, and all the DNR heads need to be conscious of the fact that the crappie might be the first one that we might see impacted by forward facing, is what I'm talking about. And so I think, well, that's what he said to me. He said, Pete, we got this.
Okay. Yep. Pete. Tom runs the hatchery where they run ShareLunker out of.
That's right.
So well-connected guy, fisheries biologist in Texas.
One more right back at you, Pete. And this is the message board is dying to know, Pete. Live bait, since you're all for everything.
Well, what is in Taku's Tupperware? That's what I want to know. Bits of real panther in there. What's going on in that Tupperware? But no, I am not for I'm not for live bait. But it is really cool to see pork rind available for sale.
Pete, I promise you come down here on the Tennessee River with me. We'll go net some yellowtails and go out there with a split shot and a yellowtail on the end of that split shot, and you'll have more fun catching smallmouth. Of course, you and I now. I mean, I know you ate fish when you had to just to survive. But we'll put them all back. It's a cool way to fish. It's kind of a lost art. You know, you got some rainbow dance that people use down around Dale Hollow, but a yellowtail on the Tennessee River about this time of year when the water temperature gets 42, 43, 44 degrees, it is an incredible way to catch big, giant smallmouth.
That's awesome. That's for those people that's a threadfin shad, right? Yellowtail.
Yes.
No. Very cool. I'd like to try that. We got to do that.
It's really cool because when that yellowtail sees that smallmouth coming, your rod just goes to shaking just like that because that yellowtail's trying to haul out until he gets eaten, and then he goes, and you got that big smallmouth that'll be 5-6 pounds. Very cool way to fish.
I hate to do it.
No yellowtails for tournaments. I draw the line there live. It's been drawn there, but I'm not opposed to doing it. We've been fishing here on the Delaware Bay BTC for forever. You know, we're going out there with squid and all kinds of bunker and
Senkos.
I haven't tried
black Senkos.
Giant grouper maybe on the Senko.
Gentlemen, I first thank you so much. I hate to do it, but we eventually got to pull the plug on the show here and let you guys go. But truly appreciate your time, your thoughtfulness, and you guys have proved it, at least to my satisfaction. Y'all be great bassars. I would support. I would gladly live under your regimes. So BTC, let's talk these guys out. Pete Gluszek. Anybody wants to keep up with Pete, check out the B.A.S.S University. Join the B.A.S S University. It's well worth it. Well worth it. I'm on there all the time trying to learn a new technique. I spend more time on the B.A.S University webpage and watching videos than I do get to fish. So that's how bad I got it for what Pete does.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And just for future shows reference, Sasquatch does not exist. The earth is flat and color does not matter. Thank you, guys.
There we go. John Johnson, longtime editor of B.A.S S fan. I tell you what, John Johnson is the finest journalist in the sport. There are sadly, John, I think you'll agree, there are not many. I certainly am not a journalist. Journalists don't dress in smoking jackets and ascots, but you, sir, are a journalist, and you are the best, and we really appreciate you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Kenny. I really enjoyed it. See you guys. See you, Mark.
Take care, John.
See you, Brian.
See you, John.
Mark Menendez,
The winner of tonight's debate.
You think? Oh, okay.
My winner because he's big on conservation. So
absolutely nobody is better for his sponsors. He is, we've been talking about another young man who's had some issues and kind of a dumpster fire recently. The anti that is Mark Menendez. Every sponsor who works with Mark gets everything they asked for and more. He creates ways to promote the people he's working with and to do good things for them. Mark, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Ken. I appreciate it. I thank all the people that I've had these long relationships with. It's been a great journey with everyone that I've worked with in the past. And Ken, we'll probably be nice to each other, so no other stories get out anymore. You know, there's a story about us talking and hands moving, and then they thought that was something else. But no, I appreciate it.
I need to tell that story on you.
You just go ahead and tell it. You go ahead and tell it right now.
All right, here it is, Brian. So I'm at a tackle show, and I'm visiting with Mark. I always enjoy running into Mark. I always enjoy this. It's always a very spirited conversation if you're talking with Mark Menendez. There is no middle ground. He is either here or he is over here, but there is no middle ground. So anyway, he's telling me about a conversation he had with somebody, and he says, I got right in their face, and so he has to illustrate. He has to get in my face. He says, I'm pointing right at my fingers right in their face, and I'm grabbing their shirt, and he's grabbing my shirt, and he's right in my face. Yeah. And so I'm just trying, not to back up and fall over, and also finally, after 45 minutes or an hour of our conversation, because our conversations are never short.
They're never short.
I walk away and I run into a guy I know at one of the other booths, and he says, man, what the hell was Menendez pissed off with you about?
But BTC, I've never been nice to Duke. I've never said anything good about him. And that's called consistency. And that's why we're friends to this day, BTC. That's why Ken and I have been
Right on,
friends
man.
for a long time.
I'm a
That's
huge
awesome.
fan of Mark Menendez, but yeah, I've got some
So am I.
Menendez stories.
Well, thanks for having me,
We'll
guys.
tell him
I
as soon as we
enjoyed
let him
your
go.
Yeah, well, no, thank you, Mark. We appreciate you, brother. You're awesome.
time. Thank you. See you next time, guys.
Take care, man.
Thanks, man.
BTC, that was a lot of fun.
It
Some
was. It was.
I expected those guys right into tournaments, and they didn't do it.
Right, right. Well, no, they didn't, but we did spend a lot of time on it. I really liked not. I really liked my idea of making the high school and college kids have to work for their discounts. I kind of love it. I'd love to see. I'm like kind of married to it right now.
When you say work, are you talking about kind of like conservation stuff, or what are you talking?
Yeah, yeah. Do something.
I agree with that.
Don't just
I
show up,
think
join the fishing team, and get gifted a bunch of discounts, and yeah, give back like Mark's doing right now. Programs,
the
whether
cypress tree
it be
plantings and stuff like that. Yeah, that's great. I
whatever
really
it
do
be,
value
cast
that.
and kid competitions with the youth, lake cleanups, just work, just get them working.
It's a
There's
topic for
nothing
another.
wrong with it. It's good. But it's good. Work ethic, and not saying that they don't have it, but it's just no matter what you do in life, a work ethic is key. It's a great tool to have.
I'm with you there, man. Absolutely. And I think that any sponsor who offers something for nothing is probably making a mistake. And maybe that's where that work comes in a conservation arena, in a promotion arena, something like that. Because I'm not convinced that high school and college fishing are growing the sport. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure they're not. But they are keeping some people involved in the sport when they might drop out. And I think that's got some value.
Yeah, and the same goes for Nation. I'd just like to see some level of give back, because we have to. We're the stewards of the resource of especially up here. The state does nothing for us. Some of the southern states, they have good programs. We don't. So
That's always been an interesting thing. The federation stuff and the grassroots stuff. Ray Scott tried to corral those groups and tried to create a unified force out of them in the early 70s, and he was pretty successful back then. But I think that a lot of that was lost as things got more and more focused on tournaments. And
right, which is a very selfish. So tournaments in itself, that everything about it is very self-centered. It's selfish. When I leave my family to go fish a tournament, it's selfish. You know what I mean?
I do.
Not saying it's all bad, but I'm not taking my family with me.
It's supposed to be a three-legged stool, that grassroots level. It's supposed to be not just competition, but also conservation and youth. And
right,
because so much emphasis has been put on the conservation part, you have guys forming clubs of minimum size. If it takes 6 members to send somebody to the state championship, then they have 6 members, and they're each a member of 6 other clubs, and it's just kind of being gamed, and I don't appreciate that.
I agree. And the other thing that I wanted to mention that we didn't have time to get into tonight, and I believe I did see it on the board as well, was when's the last time they've made new lakes, built new lakes? And that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, you're talking about the powers of eminent domain, and you're talking about back in the 30s and 40s, when most of these major reservoirs were built, they were for rural electrification. And now the country is electrified, and the need for additional reservoirs like that is not nearly the same. You do see some smaller reservoirs being built, mostly for water supply.
But do we need so many golf courses?
Hey, the market needs what pays, and golf courses pay. I live in the land of golf courses. And
they wear stupid pants, and they're elitist snobs.
Well, okay. But you got to follow the dollar, and that usually answers a lot of those kind of questions. There's more money in golf than there is in bass fishing. It's not to say there's many people golfing as there are bass fishing, but there's more money.
For sure.
Hey, quick shout out to a sponsor here. If you work in the fishing industry, or you hope to work in the fishing industry, if you aspire to a career as a tournament pro, or just want to keep up to speed with what's going on out there, you need to check out Fish Insider at fishinsider.com. That's where you can sign up for Fish Insider News, the e-newsletter that covers all the bases in the business-to-business world of American sport fishing. You'll also be signing up to receive my twice-weekly columns. So if you're a Fish Insider or want to be a Fish Insider, be sure to visit fishinsider.com and get yourself inside the loop. And if you're interested in sponsoring Bass After Dark, we're not hard to reach, and we'd love the support. We're having such a good time delivering the show. Or maybe I only speak for myself, BTC. Maybe I don't speak for you and Nathan, but I'm having such a blast. And I think we could do a lot of good things with a sponsor, for a sponsor.
Send your money to Captain Noah.
And speaking of the show we deliver and some of our goals with regard to the show, we've talked recently about the possibility of bringing in an intern, and you know so much more about how that might come together than I do.
Yes, if you're interested, reach out, hit me up. Instagram, Facebook, comment on the YouTube, and Ken reads all the comments. I take care of the Instagram and Facebook. Do we have our email addresses out there?
We don't right now, but I'll tell you what, the easiest email address for me is probably going to be Ken at Micropterus, MICROPTERUS.com. And if you put something in the comments, or if you put something in Brian's other social stuff, we'll see it. We'll get to it.
Yes.
We're not talking about a paying position, but we can offer some interesting.
Hey, whoa! So hold on to the gruesome details until we get them on the line.
Forget I said that.
Whoa. Anyhow, we ready for the top 10? Are we there, Ken?
I'm there, man.
All right. Let's cue it up. Tonight's top 10, the top 10 song themes for Jacob. God damn it, Ken. Take it away.
It's the top 10 theme songs being considered by Jacob Fouts. Here we go.
The top 10 theme songs being considered by Jacob Fouts. At number 10, it's Johnny Paycheck with Take This Job and Shove It. Number 9, it's Steely Dan with Only a Fool Would Say That. Checking in at number 8, Cardi B with WAP. At number 7, we have Frank Sinatra with Something Stupid. Number 6, it's Radiohead with How to Disappear Completely. At number 5, it's Beck with Loser. Number 4, Smokey Robinson and the Miracles with The Tears of a Clown. At number 3, it's Drake with Doing It Wrong. At number 2, it's Lyle Lovett with If I Had a Boat. And the number 1 theme song being considered by Jacob Fouts, Eric Carmen with All By Myself.
Outstanding.
And hey, shout out here. We hope all is well with that COVID situation. That's nothing to joke about.
Yes. Does he still have it?
Oh, must have it.
Yeah. It's an acute case.
It's called long COVID.
Yes, long form. Maybe we'll finally hear from him after that. I don't know. Still waiting.
Well, we're trying to do is help. That's what I think is the real message here. We're just trying to help.
Indeed. Yes, indeed. B.A.S.S After Dark IPA coming soon. I believe. But that was great, man. That was a lot of fun. It was what a good conversation there, and still a lot more to be had too. I think.
Oh, well, absolutely. You know, that's one of those themes that I think we can revisit from time to time with a different panel. Not that those guys were not stellar, and they were cherry picked. And we got the first three guys we asked. Those are exactly the guys we wanted for the show. And they're longtime friends of Brian and myself, but they're also terrifically thoughtful, terrifically experienced, and very articulate. So we knew they would be. Once again, we load the deck on Bass After Dark as much as we possibly can.
Indeed, we do. That's a wrap for tonight, guys. Thank you for hanging with us. Please like and share. Give us a review on our iTunes. We'd appreciate that. Get the word out. And next show next Thursday night, December 21st. And we're going to release the topic, Ken?
I think we're looking at whatever happened to the world record bass chase.
We have one or two of the key guys locked in.
We're locked in on two.
Yeah, that's money. We got two super key guys locked in for that. We're waiting for the third to fall in line, and that's what we're looking at for next week.
I'm excited about that one. I'm such a world record bass buff.
Yeah, man. And you brought it up on the show with Milliken there towards the end. You know, head forward facing existed back then, 80s, early 90s. What would have been like? Wow.
Yeah.
Who the hell knows? Been a lot bigger than what we have right now.
Yeah, I think that mark of 22.4 would have been passed a dozen or more times. And who knows what the record might be now? The record could be 24, 25 pounds at this point, because we know they get to 25 pounds. We learned that with Dottie in about 2006, but no forward-facing sonar back then. No 22 or 23 pound plus world record.
25 pounds, dude.
Yeah, crazy. So until next time, thanks for joining us on Bass After Dark.